It starts with a simple gesture. You're sitting on the couch after a long day, and your dog climbs up beside you. Without warning, that familiar wet tongue touches your hand. Maybe it moves to your face, your arm, your leg, sometimes even obsessively licking the air. You smile. You scratch their ears. You think, "Aw, they love me." But what if I told you that behind that lick, behind that innocent moment, there might be something far more complex, maybe even a little disturbing? For most of us, being licked by our dog is one of the most heartwarming parts of pet ownership. It feels like a connection, a non-verbal hug. It reassures us that our dog is happy, comfortable, and affectionate. We even associate it with a form of doggy love. But here's where things get a little uncomfortable. Not all licks mean love. In fact, the reason your dog licks you might have absolutely nothing to do with affection at all. This behavior, so common that we barely think twice about it, is actually rooted in a mix of instinct, psychology, communication, and even trauma. Some dogs lick because they've been conditioned to do so, rewarded for it, praised for it, even unintentionally trained to repeat it. Others lick as a form of submission, a leftover trait from when they were puppies trying to please their mother. Some lick to relieve anxiety, to self-soothe when the world feels overwhelming. And some lick out of compulsion. That's right, compulsion, a psychological need that borders on obsession. And when licking crosses that line, it stops being cute and starts becoming a red flag. Imagine this. You come home from work and your dog is waiting by the door, tail wagging furiously. You kneel to greet them, and they launch into a flurry of licks. It feels like joy, like they missed you. But what if those licks are actually a sign of separation anxiety? A desperate reassurance that you're back, that they're not alone anymore? What if they've been licking themselves while you were gone, creating raw patches on their skin because the absence was too much to bear? We don't often think of licking as a form of distress, but for many dogs it is. Just like humans bite their nails or fidget when nervous, dogs lick. Not just themselves, not just you. Sometimes they lick furniture, the floor, the walls, anything that gives them a sense of control in a world that can feel chaotic. And that raises the question, how well do you really know what your dog is feeling when they lick you? Veterinarians and animal behaviorists have studied this for decades, and what they found is astonishing. While licking can be linked to affection, it's often a multi-layered behavior that reflects everything from diet deficiencies to emotional trauma to learned dependence. Some rescue dogs, for example, develop obsessive licking patterns due to the lack of physical affection in their early lives. Others may have been punished for barking or jumping, so they redirected their energy into something more acceptable: licking. And here's the wild part. The more we reward that licking with attention, the deeper the behavior becomes embedded. Over time, the lick stops being communication and becomes a ritual, a default response to any emotion the dog doesn't know how to process. Stress? Lick. Excitement? Lick. Fear? Lick. Boredom? Lick. So what happens when we interpret every lick as love? We miss the cries for help. We overlook the signs of imbalance. We ignore the ways our dog is trying, desperately, to connect. Not just with our skin, but with our understanding. And the worst part? We sometimes reinforce a behavior that might be harming their emotional health. Let's be clear, not all licking is bad. Not all licking is obsessive. But all licking means something. And if we're truly going to be the guardians, companions, and family our dogs deserve, we need to stop brushing it off as just kisses. We need to start listening. This video isn't here to scare you. It's here to open your eyes, to show you the full emotional spectrum behind a behavior most of us think we understand. Because behind every lick is a message, a whisper from your dog's emotional world. And once you learn to decode it, your bond will never be the same again. To truly understand why dogs lick, we have to go back to the beginning. Not just their beginning, but the beginning of dogs as a species. Because this behavior didn't start in your living room. It started in the wild. Wolves, the ancestors of modern dogs, use licking as a vital part of their social system. When a wolf returns to the den after hunting, pups lick the adult's mouth to stimulate regurgitation, literally asking the parent to bring up food. It's a survival instinct, a way to say, "feed me." But it's more than that. In wolf packs, licking is also a form of respect, submission, and bonding. A lower-ranking wolf will lick a higher-ranking one to show deference. Licking is language. It's diplomacy. It's survival. Now fast forward thousands of years. Your dog may be domesticated, sleeping on a memory foam bed, munching on kibble shaped like little bones. But those ancient instincts didn't disappear, they simply adapted. When your dog licks you, especially around your mouth or face, they might be tapping into a deep-rooted evolutionary script. It's their way of saying, "You're my leader, I trust you, I depend on you." But it's also their way of saying, "Please, something, anything, I need." And here's where things get psychologically fascinating. Dogs are emotional sponges. They absorb our moods, our routines, even our silence. If you've ever noticed your dog licking you more when you're sad, stressed, or upset, that's not a coincidence. Licking releases endorphins in a dog's brain. It makes them feel better. It calms them. So when you're distressed, and your dog senses that shift, licking becomes their way of soothing both you and themselves. It's not just communication, it's co-regulation. It's emotional first aid. But this soothing mechanism can go too far. Some dogs, especially those who have experienced trauma, neglect, or high-stress environments, learn to use licking the way a child uses a pacifier or a thumb suck. It becomes a comfort object, an action they rely on to dull emotional noise. And if that dog has bonded with you, deeply, maybe even desperately, you become their safe space, their focus, their outlet. That's when licking can escalate into dependency. You might think, well, isn't it sweet that my dog needs me? And in many ways, it is. But it can also be a warning sign. When a dog begins to lick obsessively, your hands, your legs, the air around you, it might be trying to regulate anxiety it doesn't know how to express any other way. This isn't affection, it's survival. It's a coping mechanism. And it often appears in dogs who lack structure, exercise, or emotional stimulation. In other words, dogs who feel powerless in a world they don't fully understand. Even boredom can trigger excessive licking. Dogs are intelligent, emotionally driven animals. When they're understimulated, mentally or physically, they'll create rituals, patterns, repetitions that make them feel in control. Licking is one of the most common. And here's the twist. We often make it worse without realizing it. Let's say your dog licks your hand. You smile. You pet them. You talk to them in a soft voice. That tiny moment becomes a reward. Your dog's brain links the lick to a positive outcome. Affection, attention, contact. So next time they want comfort, they lick. Again and again. It becomes a learned behavior, not necessarily tied to emotion anymore, but to routine. The act becomes automatic. The danger? It can become compulsive. Compulsive licking is a real psychological condition in dogs. It's similar to obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, in humans. Dogs who suffer from this can't stop, even when they're no longer getting a reward. Even when the licking leads to physical damage, sores, infections, fur loss. And sometimes that compulsive need transfers to you. You become the focus of a loop they can't break. So the next time your dog licks you, ask yourself, are they trying to tell me something? Or are they trying to feel something they can't find on their own? That question might change the way you see every lick from now on. There's something incredibly intimate about the way dogs interact with us. They don't speak our language, yet somehow they manage to communicate volumes through their eyes, their posture, the way they nuzzle into your chest or follow you from room to room. And among all those behaviors, licking is perhaps the most misunderstood. So let's get specific. Not all licks are created equal. There's the gentle, quick lick, almost like a flicker, that seems to say, "Hey, I see you." Then there's the drawn-out, deliberate licking, where your dog seems focused, intense, like they're in a trance. Sometimes it's rhythmic, sometimes it's sporadic, and sometimes it's targeted. A particular hand, a specific spot on your face, even your ears. Each variation carries a different emotional fingerprint. According to canine behaviorists, the context of licking is everything. If your dog licks you briefly when you come home, it's likely a greeting, a happy, affectionate gesture linked to their excitement. But if the licking goes on for minutes, especially if it's paired with anxious pacing, whining, or pawing, it could point to underlying insecurity or even emotional instability. Dr. Patricia McConnell, a leading animal behaviorist, explains that licking is part comfort, part habit, and sometimes part cry for emotional connection. She compares it to human touch, soothing when mutual, but overwhelming when desperate. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Some dogs actually use licking as a form of control. Yes, control. If your dog has learned that licking gets your attention, especially during times you're distracted, upset, or unavailable, they might start using it strategically. Not just to bond, but to interrupt, to insert themselves into your emotional space, to regain a sense of presence. It's subtle, but powerful. A form of emotional manipulation that, while not malicious, can signal an unhealthy attachment. And then there's trauma. Dogs who've experienced trauma, whether through abandonment, abuse, or prolonged isolation, often develop patterns of licking that are rooted in emotional damage. For them, licking can be a form of self-medication. It releases dopamine. It dulls emotional pain. And when that pain has gone unaddressed for too long, licking becomes a compulsion not because they want to do it, but because they have to. These dogs might also redirect that energy onto their humans, not out of love, but out of need. An aching, unresolved need that manifests as obsessive attention-seeking. You might notice it more when you're sad or distant, or when routines shift. They lick more, follow more, need more, and while it might seem endearing, it often masks a deeper imbalance. This is why it's so important to observe not just how your dog licks you, but when, where, and why. Does your dog start licking every time you pick up your keys to leave the house? That could be separation anxiety. Do they lick excessively during thunderstorms, fireworks, or when guests visit? That might be environmental stress. Do they lick your feet when you're sitting still, but stop when you move? That could be attention-seeking or even boredom. Each of these moments tells a different story, and recognizing the story is the first step toward helping your dog feel safer, calmer, and more emotionally balanced. And it's not just about understanding them, it's about healing them. Because licking, when it crosses into the obsessive, becomes a symptom, not of affection, but of imbalance. And just like we wouldn't ignore a friend who constantly bites their nails or picks at their skin, we shouldn't ignore a dog who can't stop licking. It's not just a habit, it's a message. Sometimes even a silent scream. The good news? That message can be answered. That scream can be softened. But first, we have to stop seeing every lick as a kiss. Because sometimes it's a question. Sometimes it's a need. And sometimes it's a wound. Understanding your dog's licking isn't just about identifying the problem. It's about learning how to respond with empathy, clarity, and action. Because once you've recognized that a lick may not always mean love, the next step is to ask yourself, what is my dog really trying to say? And how can I help them feel heard? The first and most important thing is observation. Start tracking the behavior, not obsessively, but with awareness. When does the licking happen? Is it tied to specific times of day? Emotional cues in your environment? Your mood? Are there patterns you've never noticed because the behavior was always assumed to be affectionate? One of the most common red flags is consistency without context. If your dog licks you the same way every time you sit on the couch or every time you touch your phone, they might be linking that action to attention. Maybe you once scratched their head during a call and now they associate phone time with being touched. That's not love, it's habit conditioning. But when the licking is paired with other behaviors, shaking, panting, pacing, whining, or obsessive focus, that's when it's time to take it more seriously. These aren't just quirks, these are stress signals. Think of them as your dog's version of a panic attack, and the licking is the only tool they have to try and ground themselves. So what do? Start by reducing the reward cycle. Don't punish the licking. This can backfire and create more stress, but try to redirect it. If your dog starts licking you during a quiet moment, gently remove your hand, get up, and offer them a toy or a calming chew. Reinforce moments of calm with praise. Don't ignore them. Acknowledge their emotional need, but shift the behavior in a healthier direction. Next, focus on enrichment. Many dogs lick out of understimulation. mental, and physical activity are as essential to dogs as affection. Puzzle toys, scent games, interactive feeders, these aren't just fun, they're therapy. They give your dog a challenge, a focus, something to do with their energy that doesn't involve licking you endlessly. And of course, there's touch therapy. Dogs crave physical contact, but not always in the way we think. Long, gentle strokes along the side of their body, massage-like touch under the collarbone area, or even just calmly holding them in silence can be more regulating than 1,000 frantic licks. Replace the chaotic interaction with grounded presence. But what if the licking doesn't stop? That's when it's time to seek professional insight. A certified dog behaviorist can observe patterns you might miss. A vet can rule out underlying health issues. Yes, some dogs lick due to nausea, allergies, or pain. And what looks emotional may actually be physical. A good professional will guide you not just in managing the behavior, but in transforming the emotional root beneath it. And here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Sometimes we enable the licking because we want it to mean love. We feel comforted, needed, valued. We project our own emotional voids onto the gesture and interpret it in the way that soothes us, not the way that serves the dog. But your dog isn't here to fulfill your emotional narrative. They're here, existing beside you, with a universe of feelings of their own. And when we truly see them, when we listen, not just to the sounds they make, but to the signals they send, we unlock a deeper relationship than most people ever experience with their pets. You begin to speak the language of trust, of security, of mutual regulation. And suddenly, a lick isn't just a lick anymore. It's a moment, a question, an invitation to connect. And the way you answer that invitation can reshape the way your dog feels for the rest of their life. Because licking, like every behavior, is a story waiting to be read. And when we learn how to read it, we stop being just pet owners. We become emotional translators. We become their voice, their safe space, their home. There's something extraordinary about the relationship between a human and a dog. It's ancient, deep, woven into the history of both species. But sometimes, the most powerful moments in that relationship aren't the ones filled with noise or play or even obvious affection. Sometimes they're quiet, subtle, a single look, a tail thump, or a lick. That lick could be your dog's way of saying, "I trust you." It could be their way of asking, "Are you okay?" It might even be their way of saying, "I'm not okay." The magic lies in knowing the difference. We grow up thinking dogs are simple creatures, loyal, sweet, affectionate. But the truth is they are emotionally rich beings with complex inner lives. They feel joy, sadness, longing, frustration. They remember pain. They anticipate change. And they reach for us, not with words, but with gestures. Licking is one of those gestures. At times, it's a kiss. At others, it's a question. And sometimes, it's a coded cry for balance, safety, or just a little peace of mind. So the next time your dog licks you, pause. Don't just react. Observe. Feel. Listen. What's in their eyes? What's in their body language? What's going on around you? Because when you stop seeing the lick as automatic and start seeing it as intentional, everything changes. You start to unlock a deeper level of trust, a deeper kind of love, one that isn't based on assumptions but on attention, on presence. And that's what your dog wants more than anything, not treats, not toys, not even constant petting. They want to feel understood, safe, seen. At Mundo Animal, we believe that every behavior is a doorway, a chance to go beyond the surface and discover the emotional world of your pet. If this video opened your eyes, even just a little, to the deeper meaning behind your dog's licks, we invite you to stay curious. There's so much more your animal is trying to tell you. Subscribe to Mundo Animal, because once you learn to speak their language, you'll never go back.